I'm Morgan Reed, and this is Behind the Headlines, where we step back from the noise, slow the story down, and look at what actually matters.
The investigation is over. The federal investigation is over because the man in charge of the federal investigation says she ran him over. In an exclusive interview with the New York Times yesterday, Donald Trump said she ran him over. She didn't try to run him over. She ran him over. That is a lie. But that is the conclusion of the man in charge of the federal investigation of a federal ICE agent shooting and killing an unarmed 37-year-old mother who was committing no crime. To prove his point, Donald Trump summoned a staff member with a laptop to show a video of the shooting. It's one of the videos that we've all seen. And of course, it shows that she did not run him over. Donald Trump's FBI has decided to break with standard practice in this case and conduct an investigation without including state and local law enforcement in their federal investigation. That means there will be no real federal investigation. Donald Trump's Attorney General and Donald Trump's FBI Director know that they and everyone working for them must do everything they can to support Donald Trump's lie she ran him over. The way to do that is to not interview witnesses and not reveal any of the investigative material that they collect in their investigation. They will not interview the ICE agent who pulled the trigger because they don't want him saying anything that could cause problems for him in future litigation or future investigations, which could include civil litigation. This was homicide. Not all homicide is criminal. The term homicide simply means that a person was killed by another person. In any homicide investigation, the two most important places to begin are with the weapon and the body. The FBI, run by Donald Trump, has the weapon. They have the gun. But that's all they have. According to the Minneapolis Mayor's Office, the Hennepin County Medical Examiner has the body. And the body tells a story that no other evidence can. That means the Hennepin County Medical Examiner also has the bullets, or the single bullet that entered the body and killed Renee Good. Using the trajectory of bullets through a body, a medical examiner can tell us which bullet was the deadly bullet. A medical examiner can tell us which way she was facing or turning when she was hit by that bullet. Was it the first bullet, the second bullet, the third shot fired? In this case, investigators freeze-framing the video can determine, based on the medical examiner's findings, whether the first shot that appeared to go through the windshield was a miss. And matching this freeze frame to the trajectory of the bullets and the bullet in the body, investigators could determine which of those bullets fired from the position beside the car was the deadly shot. Was that one? You see that hand extended, that single, one hand on the gun extended to the car, which is beyond the shooter now. He's no longer just beside that window. That car is beyond him. He's still shooting at that woman, posing absolutely no threat to him at that time. With that gun extended, aimed to that driver, there is no threat to the person firing that gun. Was that shot the fatal shot? Medical examiner might be able to determine that. That shot was fired from beside the car. The car was moving away from all of the ICE agents at that time, posing a threat to absolutely no one. The agent firing that shot from beside the car was in absolutely no danger when he was standing beside the car that had passed him already at that point. Still shot. Of course, in a proper investigation, the ballistics evidence from the bullet itself would be used to determine the exact sequence of the shot. The ballistics evidence from the gun matters. That tells us the sequence of shots. But the FBI has the gun, and the FBI controls the ballistics evidence that is in their possession. When the shots are fired into cars, most of the time they miss their target in the cars. Most police bullets fired at or into cars miss. And the bullets that miss are found somewhere in the car. We do not know tonight if the FBI is in possession of bullets found in the car. And it may be that no bullets were actually lodged in the body. It is possible that the fatal bullet passed through the body, but it is very likely that the medical examiner is in possession of at least one bullet. So the FBI cannot possibly conduct a real investigation without the medical examiner's cooperation. And most importantly, Donald Trump's federal government cannot control the findings of the medical examiner. Donald Trump can control everything else, but not the autopsy report. J.D. Vance said, quote, "The reason this woman is dead is because she tried to ram somebody with her car and that guy acted in self-defense." So there's the Vice President of the United States with his case closed declaration about exactly the kind of case the federal government would investigate carefully if anyone other than Donald Trump were President of the United States. After hearing the Vice President's final judgment on the case, one reporter asked J.D. Vance if he had access to any information at all about the case that was not already public, and he didn't. He doesn't know anything that we don't know. So J.D. Vance is working with exactly the same evidence that all the rest of us have. And in a second point of disgrace for Yale Law School, J.D. Vance suggested that something that happened 6 months ago in a different town was a reason to shoot and kill Renee Good. J.D. Vance said, quote, "That very ICE officer nearly had his life ended, dragged by a car 6 months ago, 33 stitches in his leg. So you think maybe he's a little bit sensitive about somebody ramming him with an automobile?" Yes, J.D. Vance, I do think he's a little bit sensitive about that. That's a very good point, Mr. Vice President. And that is a reason why that ICE agent should not be on the street after an incident like that, because we cannot trust the judgment of angry men with guns who bring previous experiences to their next law enforcement encounter and decide to shoot and kill in exactly the same situation where this same agent 6 months ago decided not to shoot and kill. And the person this agent decided not to shoot and kill 6 months ago is now in prison, awaiting sentencing for interfering with a federal agent. Following the Minnesota Star Tribune, MS Now identified the ICE officer who fatally shot Renee Good as Jonathan Ross. The New York Times has confirmed that identification in an affidavit filed in the United States of America versus Roberto Carlos Munoz on June 17th of last year, included a description by an FBI agent who investigated the case of what happened to Jonathan Ross in that incident. The affidavit says that he approached Munoz's car knowing that Munoz had previously been arrested for sexual abuse, and that Munoz was a citizen of Guatemala. And so they went to arrest him at his residence in Bloomington, Minnesota. They found Munoz in his car. The affidavit says that Jonathan Ross, quote, "approached the driver's side window of Munoz's vehicle and commanded Munoz to place the vehicle in park. The ARO officer unholstered his taser with his left hand and pointed it at Munoz's chest. The ERO officer's commands were made in both English and Spanish. While the ERO officer's right arm was inside the vehicle, Munoz put the vehicle in drive. The ERO officer's right arm was caught in the vehicle. As Munoz fled, the ERO officer was dragged along with the vehicle as Munoz drove away." Jonathan Ross was hanging in that window, being dragged by it being stuck in the window of that car for about 100 yards before he was able to get his arm out of there and fall to the street. Roberto Munoz was arrested about a mile from the scene. The affidavit shows photographs of Officer Ross's injuries, including a photograph of 20 stitches required in his right arm, along with 13 stitches in his left hand. So that's how Jonathan Ross approached a car 6 months ago. And J.D. Vance thinks because of that, quote, maybe he's a little bit sensitive about somebody ramming him with an automobile. In other words, J.D. Vance thinks another car Jonathan Ross approaches, which is not being driven by anyone who has ever been charged with a crime, a car that's being driven by an American citizen, a car that is being driven by a mother of three, when that agent walks up to that car, that person might just get killed because of what someone else did 6 months ago. And that's true. That is the human truth of police work. That is the human reality of police work. Law enforcement is populated by human beings who have resentment, human beings who have angers. But unlike the rest of us, they are not legally allowed to indulge their resentments and their angers in the line of duty with guns in their hands. And that's exactly why, after what happened to Jonathan Ross 6 months ago, he should not have been on the streets looking for trouble or causing trouble. There's plenty of work to do in the federal government, indoors, at ICE headquarters, in the ICE office. That's where you keep him after an experience like that 6 months ago. 4 years from now, with the new Attorney General appointed by a Democratic president and a new U.S. Attorney in Minneapolis appointed by a Democratic president, Jonathan Ross could be subject to an honest federal investigation of what happened on that street. And so, if you think Donald Trump did a lot of pardoning on his first day in office, on his last day in office, he could be pardoning every single member of Trump's deadly force.